Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games. Today we're going to look at Titans! That's right, it's a game by Lucas Wozniak, mangled his name probably. This is a Dudes on a Map game, of which we've had many come out in the last few months. Lots and lots of games that feature dudes on a map, running around, fighting for justice and glory, and the occasional fried food supplement. This one's a little interesting in that it has some clever card play and some interesting battle mechanics, but let's just quit boring you with the talk and get into gameplay.
All right, let's go over Lucas Wozniak's Titans. Nice box. I like that box. You get a glorious map. It's two-sided. You have an opportunity on the other side to have a larger field of play. Very detailed, very detailed. But getting into a review now. You have areas for cards here. These are the action cards, or the action selection cards that you're going to choose from on your turn. Each of these cards has three different things you can do. You are limited into that, so you don't have this free form normally on Dudes on a Map. You have a free form like, hey, on your turn you can move all your units, or move five of your units, or roll the dice and move any units. Here you are limited by whatever the cards give you in the queue as to what actions you can take. You get, let's go over here, we get the ever so lovely pizza box sized manual, which is egregiously annoying for me in this game, which I'll explain later, but it's very, very well detailed. Lots and lots of examples, lots and lots of play information. Yeah, definitely. Then you get an extra for the solo mode, and that also goes down each and every one of the four factions and explains them. Um, every player, okay, and then you get these support cards, which are cards that you're going to get over the course of a battle, and you augment your forces with. Every player gets a nation, and that nation has a nation ability, a Titan ability, Titan, Teen Titan, um, and then it. Oh, hey, a Titan that falls over, unheard of. All right, then you have cards. Each of these are nation cards. These are special cards that you're going to be able to acquire during the course of play. This sort of boost, give you one-ups, special powers and abilities far above those of mortal men or something. And then you have your player element, you have dice, and what's cool is the dice map to the unit types. You have your infantry, you have your cavalry, you have your artillery, and you have your Titan. Each one of these has a different die. Didn't have to be that way, but they did that, and I think that's very cool. I'm reviewing again. You got me monologuing. All right, so like infantry have these dice, cavalry have these dice, the Titan can use these dice, and the artillery can use these dice. So every player gets their own board with that, and then territory control tokens. So you can use those to mark territory that you've got. That's basically about the essential nature. Your units wise, you are limited. You don't have a ton of units, but you do have your, like I said, your cavalry, your cannons, your silly English kniggets. Oh wait, no, these are just peasants. And your titans. You have victory points because in the end, combat, war is always about victory points, right? You have a few different extra things here. These are nice because these are meant to block off the map for less than four players. As you can see, I've set up a two-player game here in a starting configuration. Also, you have objective cards. These are secret objectives that you're going to be trying to uh, complete during the course of the many battles in play. When you complete those, you're going to get, you guessed it, victory points. And then there's Automa cards for the solo play, which we'll leave that to discover on your own. And there's a lot of updates now. I got the Kickstarter, and so I have several different modules with different ability, different add-ons for different things. Yeah, they're all kind of, there are several different modules that you can add to it. We're going to take an example of the most basic of the two-player scenarios, two-player starting matches. There you go. Let's get into an example of how you play Titans. Okay, let's go over gameplay, but first let's talk about the victory conditions. How you win is all about victory of points. Victory points it's a pretty easy system in this game. You're going to get a point at the end of each round, of which there are 3 rounds, 1, 2, 3, for every territory that you control. So control of territory is a big thing. You also will be able to get from your hidden objectives various points as well. So, for example, if you win a battle in the central region, which is always one central region, you're going to get points immediately for that as well. When you win and lose battles, when you win battles, you're going to get victory points as well. Those are really the main types of ways that you're going to get victory points. So that's kind of the end goal, is not necessarily to wipe the people off the map more than it is to get victory points, because this is a game that's not necessarily going to have you just sweeping across and destroying all the armies in your path and a dominating victory. As for dudes on a map, there's a pretty small amount of dudes. So anyway, so what you do, before we go over it, as we start out, every player has an opportunity to, before they begin, we'll leave this open information, even though under a normal game it would be secret. But you have support cards. And why are these support cards important? Because your units, again, there aren't many dudes on a map, so you're going to be relying on the card play almost as much as the units, to be honest with you. And the card play gives you sort of benefits and abilities. Now, you can combine these, and you can do several things with these, but the key are the requirements. For example, anything in black means I can only use this in battle when I have an infantryman in that battle, in which case I get an extra die. Now, if I play 2 of these, or if I have 2 that qualify in the extra die example, for example, this. What if I have both an infantry and a cavalry? And then I can use these 2 cards, combine it, and instead of getting an extra die for infantry, which isn't very high rate of success, I can actually throw an extra Titan die, which has a much higher rate of success. And so these cards are going to be interesting scenario, like they're very situational at times, but they matter. The other thing to note is that if they're red, it means the enemy has to have those. So that's really the only demarcation. But other than that, you have, for example, I can bring a unit into battle. Which is great. Like, you can pull units in because units are scarce, and so the more units you get, units make a big impact. You can't just bring all 50 of your archers across the map like Age of Empires. You have to be very judicious with how you use your units in battle in this game. The other thing is, at the start of the game, you have these nation cards. You have this whole deck, but at any given time, you're only going to be looking at, say, 3 of them. They all have different costs, and those costs are support cards. So you're trading these nice kind of boosts, like permanent boosts, for these sort of temporal battle support cards. If I wanted to, say, have this, which means this one's powerful. This one says that if I have only infantrymen in a battle, like if I'm only using my infantrymen, then I get an extra Titan dice during that battle. That's pretty powerful. And here it's, if I have any cavalry, then I get an extra cavalry die. That's also pretty powerful. This one says once per round, not battle, once per round, and there's only 3 rounds. So I can set one of my dice to maximum. So these are powerful cards that are there with you, like the Force, always. In this case, because I don't really feel great about the support cards, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and pick up that card. These can go back into the deck on the bottom, I think, and I have to pay 2 cards. So I'm going to pay this card, and I'm going to pay this card, and those just get discarded. So there we go. We're done. There we go. And so now that's my starting unit. And I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll begin. Okay, so everyone has their stuff. In this case, notice I chose the 0 cost card, which means I could keep all 3 of my support units. All right, we're going to have red start. Fortunately, there's a nice little legend here. The first thing we do is we lay out. This is a 2-player game, so we're going to lay out 8 cards. Here, these are off limits. These are on limits. So look at that. Look at that. All right. So we have, and I've replaced my Titans with Bob Ross because Bob Ross is Titanic to me. All right. So we are going to get this glare out of the way. So you have your option. I, as a player, can choose any of these cards to begin my turn. Each one has a different ability. I'm looking here going, I think I want to do territorial territorial attacks. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to grab this card here and I'm going to execute it. I can move my units here. I'm going to move here. I'm going to move my cannon here, and I'm going to move my Titan here as well. Haha. All right, so good. I'm sort of carving up territory in victory points, but I haven't yet gotten to battle. And that's it. That's the end. So I discard that, and then if any battles happen, they battle now. Right now I don't have any battles. Then I can grab one of these support cards, and looking at these guys, I'm thinking if I could find something that the enemy has cavalry, I like this one. This one is great. So I add it to my support thing. Then at the end of my turn, I do cleanup. I can only have 5 of these cards at the end of my turn. And if I have a Titan that's gotten destroyed, and Bob does not fall, then I can move him, or I can either place him, or if he's sideways, I can pull him back up. Well, so either way, like if your Titan gets lost, he goes back into the battle either 1 or 2 turns later. So anyway, and that's it. That's all you do. It's very quick and speedy. So now we're going to go over to yellow, and yellow has to look at one of these and decide what to do as well. Unfortunately, he can choose to try and add this. This is not the best timing, but no, we're going to do this. Okay, so we'll grab that. We're going to move him here. We're going to move him here. We're going to move him here. Yeah, we'll just move him up. All right, same thing. We discard it. No battles happened, so we got to replenish. So we look here and go, what would be interesting? We're going to go ahead and take this. And so he has a second support card. And we are back again to third turn. Now, it makes sense to do this, and then we have here. This is tricky. This is interesting. We're going to move. We're going to move here, and then we're going to add, and then we can move a cannon if we want, but we're not going to move that cannon. We're going to instead add an infantry right here. We're definitely getting battle lines going on here. And again, we have no battles yet. They're coming. Oh, don't fear, they're coming. And then we get to replenish our cards. Look here. I think based on what I'm seeing that we're going to grab this sucker here. There we go. All right, so we're ready if war should be upon us. And then finally, yellow decides, does it want to, it can take a card. It does the take a card here. Yeah, so it's going to pick up this card here, which is a nice little extra bonus. And then it costs 1 support card, so we're going to go ahead and just get rid of that support card there. All right. And the other thing is it gets to move a unit anywhere. So our Titan is going to move here. We feel that war is brewing in the northwest area of the map. All right, and that's it. Now that's the end of that. So then we bring these down again, and we reveal, for a 2-player game, we're going to reveal 3, not 4. Well, there's a reason for that. All right, and back we go. Is it time for war? I think it's time for war. I do. All right, so we're going to, you know what? I'm going to do this. This says I can move up to 4 units from one area to another. So I'm going to go on the border here, and we're going to attack. It's time for battle. All right, so battle is interesting. Now there's a ton of rules. There's a lot of little details that go on, but we'll start off with the dice. You look for any of these cards that say before the battle, I can grab any of the support cards and discard a support card. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm looking at the battle here going, what do I have? I'm looking for something that's going to give me some, I have some advantages. I have some advantages. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this card here and get rid of this card here, because there's no artillery in the battle. All right. So on the red side, all of these are during battle. So, all right. So now we're set to go. The Titan gets a Titan dice and a cannon dice. Cold cannon dice. All right. There's that. On the other side, we have the cavalry and the, look at that. All right, there we go. Rolling. So, first thing we do is we roll the dice. 2. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So red starts off with 6 strength. And yellow starts off with 3. Or 2. 2 strength. Alright, so that's the start. Now, if there's a fortress, it changes the order in which people can resolve battles, but in this case it's a field battle, and so the defender goes first, and then the attacker goes next. So the attacker gets to go, okay, so what do I have in my hand that I can work with? Well, first off, if there is a infantry, in this case, if there's a cavalry in the battle, then you get an extra one of these, so that's cool. So we're going to add that, so that gives us another one. This one is same thing. We get an extra horse dice, although this is done for the rest of the round. So we get yet another one. So now we're at 4. And don't be, depending on the margin of victory determines on how badly things will go for the loser. So even if you feel like you're not going to win the battle, you might want to close the gap just to avoid dastardly things. And finally, we have this, which says that if I have an infantry in the battle, I can roll, I get an extra die. I don't have 2 of these, and so I don't get the power die, but I can at least roll 1 more. Also, I could always, once per battle, discard a support card and re-roll any of my dice. I feel like that would be counterintuitive here, because this is about the middle of the road, so I'm just going to use this card, because I have infantry. I'm going to discard it, and I'm going to roll another dice. And I get 1 more. So now I'm at 5. Okay. And that's it. That's really all I've got to do. I've used up everything I can. So now we switch over to red and we go, okay, well, red is already at 6. 6 to 5. That wouldn't be a very smashing victory. Is there anything that red can do? Well, yes, red can. There's a Titan in the battle and there's an infantry in the battle. And no. If there was a Titan in the battle, an enemy Titan, then you'd get an extra 5 power. But there's not, so you don't. But combining these two, you get an extra 3. So instead of 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so that's good. So we discard those. And then we look at what else we've got. Do we have anything else? There's, you know what, I think we'll leave it at this, because 9 minus 5 is 4, which I think is, well, if I can get 1 more, let's see, so, and that, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I could go for the jugular, and I probably would do well, but instead I'm just going to show you how it goes. I'm going to stop there. So we are now at the end. We have a power of 9 to a strength of 5. 9 minus 5 is 4. So obviously red has won. Now the question is, how much has red won? How did Bob do? So we go here to this chart and we say if the margin of victory is 3 to 4, one of these units is gone. And so obviously yellow is going to get rid of his infantrymen. And retreat has to retreat back to a known area. Get rid of the dice now. They did their job. Yeah, retreats. But the thing is, even with loss, you get 2 cards. So it's going to grab these 2 cards. Support cards. You can also grab one from the deck blindly if you need. And all right, so there we go. There we go. And finally, 2 victory points. So the winner gets 2 victory points. There you go. So that's the way that battle worked. So not too devastating for yellow, generally speaking, but Bob got victory points, and that's what matters most. And that's basically battle. Yeah, so that's the gist of it. The battle has been completed. All right, so with that all cleaned up, um, in we go. Happiness. Yay. Okay. So we finished the battle. The other thing we can look in again, if if any of the win a battle against an army with a Titan, didn't do that. Defend with a small army and win, but they didn't win. But here we look, win a battle in the central region, nope. Control 5 regions only with you, nope. Attack with a smaller army than your opponent's, nope. So none of those qualify. If they did, we could have gotten those victory points too. And that's the essence of the game, really. You're going to do this a lot. There's a lot of different configuring and switching and moving and joculating for positioning and all that stuff. But that's the essence of Titans. Lots and lots of battle, lots and lots of twists and turns to battle. Yeah, so again, at the end of the round, like for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, I should note there. Whenever you leave a region, you can just you put your control token there, and that way you can remember that you own those, quote unquote. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 points would go to red. 1, 2, 3, 4 would go to yellow. I mean, that's it. That's the basics of the game. It's again, you can add a solo mode, which I think is pretty cool. I definitely would. I definitely think the sweet spot for this one is 3, 3 or 4. But I definitely will tell you more about this when I get to my review. So I'll stop talking and let's talk about my final thoughts of Titans.
All right, final thoughts on Titans. Not Teen Titans, not Clash of the Titans, not Revenge of the Titans. Up we go with the glasses so we don't get the glare. Let's talk about the cons first. I like to go through the cons. It's a little less confounding that way. The biggest thing to be aware of in this game, things that are, this isn't necessarily a con, but it is a forewarning. It is very icon heavy. If you're rather iconoclastic or icon averse, this will be something you're going to either want to sidestep as a hurdle, or you're going to want to be prepared as you play it to be able to differentiate and discern icons. This is not a bad thing per se, because the icons are generally very consistent. You will have, they make sense to me at least as far as what they're trying to evoke, like movement, bringing it into play, etc. I did not find it to be the hurdle that it might have. There is a little bit of like placement of icon, like if you have a red circle in a unit, that means it's your enemies. If you have a black circle, it means it must be in yours when you're playing these, doing the interchange with the cards that you saw during battle. Other than that, the modular expansions were a little bit confusing to try to differentiate. Like, it comes in the box, that's great. I really like that they have these extra expansions, and I dabbled in a few of them a little bit. It's not something that you're going to want to. Yeah, it's best to just grab, like, to try, like, I'm one of these people. I grab a box, I open it up, I want to know exactly what's in there. I do an inventory. Yes, I'm not anal. I want to know exactly where the pieces are, how they all fit, what they go. I did manage to arrange them, but it wasn't necessarily clear where the module expansion, there wasn't a clear separation of which module matched with which types of pieces are being used for it. Not nearly as bad as Dark Ages, the game I played before. But still, something you're going to do. The other thing, and again, those are basically sort of one-time issues. Once you pass those, you're going to be fine. The terrain is gorgeous, but that said, it's irrelevant. You could easily just set up a node tree, because that's really all they are. There's no sort of like, oh, these mountains, I'll bet they're hard to get through. No, you just move them like you move everything else. So just, again, it's eye candy, but it's really good eye candy. Like, I know that my eyelids have a sugar buzz from it. So more players, not necessarily better. That's an odd thing for Dudes on a Map. I know every game, player count has has a point of absurdity, a point of no return on the fun factor. This one, I think, if you have 4 knowledgeable people, you could do a 4-player game and be okay. But expect some downtime when they're going around. I mean, they try to keep the turns tight, but you get into combat, you're just yeah, okay. Again, like, this is not an uncommon thing. This is not anything that just, wow, industry's never seen that before. So And finally, the pizza box manuals drive me nuts. Again, that's a personal pet peeve. When you have a big manual, it's nice to see the colors. So beautiful, glossy pictures, examples. That's actually a pro. I will actually mention that in the pro section. But when it's so big and you're just like, you're trying to play this big game already with all these big pieces and a big manual that you like windshield size manual, and then you get the player aid. The player aid has information that's really beneficial to people, but I mean, literally, you practically have to sit there and like, here you go, sire. You can read your cards. There you go. Does anyone else want a piece of knowledge pizza? Not very fun during a game. So that's it. That's the cons. That's all I got to say about the cons. Let's get to the pros. I like the pros. Again, the artwork is dazzling. The board is rich. I love it. I just love that art style. The cards are really well illustrated. You know, the information is pronounced. It's there. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's certainly above average. The miniatures I really like. I think they're distinct. I can tell unit from unit without having to paint them, and I suck at painting. The Titans, that is a high point. I mean, it's named Titans, and it takes the idea of Titans seriously. It really does. It scales really well. It does. At all counts short of maybe 5. I wouldn't even begin to try it at that. No, the way the game is structured and the way that it sort of segments out based on player count, what is the battlefield, and it is a battlefield, is what I think helps keep it focused on tight gameplay. Solo mode, it's mature, it's challenging, it works just fine for me. It's not too much overhead. It's not going to replace a player. AIs generally don't, hopefully. But it's okay. It's perfectly. I actually have no problem. Actually, it's pretty satisfying. Dudes on a Map is a solo game, not an easy thing to pull off all the time. The two-player mode actually. Now, most of the time when you're playing Dudes on a Map or strategy games like this, two-player games tend to be neutered. They tend to be kind of a casualty of play because it's sort of like the mindset is like, we build this for big epic clashes between large groups of units as they fight over the map for control, and you make it 2 players and you're like ping 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 ping. It just gets vacuous. If you play to those, it just gets vacuous, and then they usually solve it by like carving out, oh, you can only play in this arena, and then you have the same sort of grand epic game style, but then now you have to pack it in here, and it just doesn't map well or translate well. That is not true for Titans. Titans is a very good 2-player Dudes on a Map game. It's for 2 reasons. One, you're in the thick of things ASAP, no matter where you start. You are not off on the beaten path going, I will find you. I will find you and hunt you down. No, you're like, boom, here we are. Like it's the weigh-in when the 2 fighters are like nose to nose, going to take you out. So that's one thing that helps it, is that no matter what player count, you're going to start right in the thick of things. You don't have a whole build-up phase to worry about over time and stuff. The other thing that helps the 2-player game is that the combat is, well, we'll get into that, but the way the combat is structured helps make 2-player just as interesting as 3 and 4 and 1 player. Let's get into combat. Let's talk about it. It's thinky. It's thinky in a good way. You have normally when you're in combat, we roll some dice, and then maybe you have a card or 2 at the start or the end, the kind of secret things that you throw out, maybe all of those ancillary things that might end. In this way, the dice are almost kind of a sideshow compared to the various layers of decision making that you're going to have, not only as part of combat, but part of the after effects of combat. There's lots of ways to inject advantages. You have your cards that they're contextual. You can try, okay, I really want to get into, if I'm going to use this card, I'm going to have to fight. Oh, they really need their Titan there. That's going to give me this advantage. Cool. Then I have extras. Then I'm going to roll the dice, and then and take my chances, add a dice here, do whatever. You're trying to go, what's the value here? Because the other thing is, you don't get to squash armies and roll across the map and go, I have dominated, I now own this section. You're not really, you're pushing. It's almost like the battle lines push, and there's a little bit of attrition. Sometimes it's not guaranteed that you're going to have major attrition. Yes, they will lose units on their side and whatever at times, but it's not like if you lose combat and it devastates you, there's only 1 or 2 combats that you're going to be able to lose before you start feeling like, well, I'm just going to be in retreat mode. What can I do? Here you don't, because you have this sort of, you have this idea that you as a winner are going to get victory points, but also you as a loser are going to get a future advantage that you can steer in your favor. It's not at all about lethality. You lose, but you gain something to help you recoup. It's sort of like when you're fighting on the map and then suddenly you're losing ground, but then your armies are getting closer to where their families are, and so they're going to fight a little harder. It's kind of the same thing. Like, yeah, I lost, and I had to retreat, but now I've got extra advantages here, and maybe I can move some people in and whatever. Um, the conveyor belt sort of actions that you're taking, when you saw like you pick a card that play, none of them are so tight that you're going to be like, oh wow, now I got nothing to do. Most of the time you're going to find something to do. It's just a matter of, are you going to get a little extra steering just right, or are you going to just have a card that has one thing you really want to do and one thing that might be advantageous down the road. The emphasis on skirmishing with purpose, really. It's skirmishing with purpose. You're thinking to this battle, but you know that you're not generally going to wipe out someone. So you're going to have to think, what happens after that battle? Do I do this battle, but then I get the victory points? I love victory points, and that's the thing about this game, is that the emphasis is not on just going across the map, conquering like Attila the Hun or the Mongols. You're going across this map, but you care about the victory points. So you might avoid a specific combat here or there or whatever in order to make sure that you were eking out the victory points in all the ways that you can. The final thing that I really like is the Titans. Because it's such an emphasis on Titans, I worked on a game way back, right before the 2000s, 1999 and stuff, called Total Annihilation. I was able to be part of that, and then its successor. And one of the things that was really interesting about that game is that, and it was a computer video game, is that you had a commander, and a commander is very similar to a Titans. And one of the things about balancing is that you want the commander to be powerful. You want it to be, it's powerful. If it isn't powerful, it's not much of a commander, and kind of the whole awesomeness of it is lost. At the same time, if it's too powerful, why would you build anything else? Why not just walk across? And so there's a balance there to go like, it has to be powerful, but it can't be immortal. And I think there's a good draw here. Titans here are powerful, but they're not immortal. They're not simply something you gather around. They're not the one unit killer stack. They do fall. They do have they do have weakness. You can take them out. It is possible. And at the same time, they do have a nice edge in combat. Their Titan abilities, etc. And I think they've done a really nice job here of making Titans powerful and yet not immortal. So in summary, we are in a very crowded market right now for games that feature lots of units on a map fighting over control. And honestly, like, it would be easy for this game to sort of get lost in the cracks and get lost in translation, so to speak. I actually don't think it does. I think it has an excellent place. It definitely is on the higher end of the funness curve for me. I think this is going to fit well. Like Wildlands is an example, and others where if you're playing with lesser player counts, you can, Claustrophobia, you can, which is 2-player only, you can actually have a great time, not just a good time. If you can't get that third person, you can have a great time playing 2-player or solo with this, as well as 3 and 4 players. So it's an optimal recommend for the lower player counts. And all in all, it's a very worthy skirmish game that engages your brain as well as your adrenal glands. So there you go. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.